Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Digging In with Bonnie. I have with me the DJ Menace from QTH Radio. That's right. You can listen to it 24/7, www.qthradio.live. Saturday mornings at 9:30, you could tune in and listen to DJ Menace. Saturday Morning Coffee with DJ Menace, and he does a wonderful job. Tonight he will be around 7 o'clock. He will have DJ Flashback on doing the Smashing 80s. So how are you today, Dennis?
Well, I'm forgetful because I forget about the green on my shirt. People aren't going to be able to see the green that's on my shirt because of the green screen in the background.
This is actually, it says QTH Radio DJ Menace with his website. He does very well on the show, so I hope you tune in and listen. He will be attending the LGBTQ plus Pride. It's Pride, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Up in Ashtabula County Fairgrounds on June 3rd. It's in Jefferson, Ohio. I hope to see a bunch of you there. I'll be there as well.
It will be a fun one.
Yes, we're looking really forward to it. First thing first today, we had a tragic incident here in Ashtabula, Ohio yesterday. And we would like to extend our sincere
We'd like to give our sincerest condolences to the family.
Apparently, Rena Gilbert of Ashtabula, I don't know her age or anything, but still, too young and definitely shouldn't have lost her life the way she did. I do have some details. I just don't know what's factual yet, so I'm going to keep those to myself. I will, however, when I find out what the truth to what's going on, I will, definitely do a podcast on that. It just kind of goes hand in hand with our very first podcast about guns.
Right.
There was also a young man who was life flighted in this. Thankfully, my last update I heard was that he is awake and doing well. I'm just sorry he has to be elsewhere other than home with his family and, trying to recuperate from all of this. So we are very sorry. When you look on Facebook, there's nothing bad about this young lady. Everybody's thanking her for being such a wonderful friend, a wonderful person. And of course, I don't know, life's too short. We all have to kind of stand up here together and fight against this monster. That's what we're dealing with every day, is a monster.
Yes. Very much so.
On another note, if you could see our back splash here, is that what you want to call it, backsplash? Our background.
Yeah.
Has missing people on it. So today we're going to be talking about missing people. A lot of people automatically assume children come up missing. That is not the case. You have an equal amount of adults, children, different reasons that people come up missing. This, I'm hoping, will make parents realize you definitely need to pay attention to your kids' internet transactions or actions, and just get really involved with them. Find out who they're talking to. Right. We just actually had an incident this past week. A man out of Conneaut was online talking to what he thought was a 15-year-old. And it was just across the line over to Erie, PA. Thankfully, it was not a 15-year-old. It was an undercover cop. So they thankfully got him. So it's one less person on the streets doing this. But it's so important. Like today, when you go to keep track of your kids' internet actions and what they're doing, it's harder because now school and all that also comes into the internet.
Right.
Where, when I was in school, or even when my kids were in school, they had the encyclopedias and all that to fall back on. And today, everything's on the internet. So we're going to give you a little fact and stat here. Child Find of America is estimated 2,300 children are missing every day in the United States. And they can be missing for many reasons. We have runaways, throwaways, lost, stranded, or injured, family abduction, stranger abduction. A lot of your children abductions do come from a parent that strayed from the family. Be it they just feel they're being cheated out of their rights, be it they're just trying to get even with the other spouse. I mean, it amazes me when these children get found and the reasons for them being taken. I mean,
Right.
don't use your children to get even with one another.
Definitely
Even though
not.
you're a parent, imagine how tragic that is to a child.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason mommy and daddy aren't together anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And then all of a sudden, the one that's not there swoops in and takes them away. It definitely makes life difficult for them.
It does.
It's just,
It does. I mean, it's already, especially in a circumstance like that, it's already difficult on the children as it is.
yes.
No matter what age they are. I've seen where adult children have been hit really hard because this husband and wife need to split apart for whatever reason it is, and it's a legitimate reason that they need to get away from each other.
Right, right.
But because they fought through it for so long for the kids, because that at least for a long time that was the common occurrence, was we need to stick it out for the kids.
Yes. I mean, that still happens today.
Right. But
So,
it's one of those things where, because they have been together for so long, and they're the kids, even though they're adults now, because they've always seen mom and dad as being together and being happy with one another, they're reasonably upset because mom and dad split apart.
right.
So,
And then, of course, when mom or dad, whichever the case may be, shows up and says, well, come on, you're going with me, the kids are going to go.
right.
And then, of course, they're going to be part of the police being called, the car being pulled over, or the police coming to your residence to take you away. I mean, there's just so much that these kids have to experience. So if this is your deal, leave the kids alone. Leave them out of it. You want to see your kids, take the proper course to do it.
Mm.
You should never, unless their life's in danger, you should never keep their children from a parent anyway.
No.
I don't care what the reason is. They don't pay their child support, take them to court. Just don't cheat that child because they can't make a payment. 2/3 of our children are between 15 and 17 years old. The male-female ratio is equal. More than half returned home in the same week. 99% returned home. Now, this is the runaways and throwaway aspect. 21% are physically or sexually abused at home. So if you have a child and you feel like everything's going good for them and stuff, but all of a sudden they're gone, when you get that child back, please sit down, talk with them. Let them know that there's something going on you need to know.
Right.
Reassure them that your job as a parent is to make sure they're taken care of, and that's exactly what you're going to do.
Exactly.
Okay, why do children run away from home? 42% have family problems, 14% because of peer pressure, 5% because of drug or alcohol abuse, and then 4% because of physical abuse.
Mm.
And if you're a parent that is not actually doing the abuse, but you know it's going on and you're not stopping it, guess what?
You're just as much at fault.
You're doing the abuse as well. So this child is not going to come to you. They're just going to leave because they feel like they're in a no-win situation. So then when we get to the family parental abductions, you have an estimated 203,900 children were victims of a family abduction in 1999. A family abduction occurs when a family member takes or keeps a child in violation of a custodial parent, guardian's legitimate rights. 78% of the abductors are the non-custodial parent. 35% of children were between 6 and 11 years old. 24 of the abductions lasted between 1 week and 1 month. 82% of the abductions intended to affect custody permanently. 21% are other relatives. 42% of the children were living with single parents. 15% were living with another. Another relative or foster parent, where 66% were taken by male relative. And you have to ask yourself there, why would a male relative just, willingly come along and take a child? So these are all things you have to watch for.
Right.
Uh, why do family members become abductors? They're dissatisfied with the custody decision in court, or they have been denied visitation for not paying child support. They are protecting the child and or themselves from abuse. They are angry with the breakup of the relationship, or they are angry with the other parent's new partner lifestyle. Again, leave the children out of it.
Yes.
Okay, so then, of course, the non-family abductions and stereotypical kidnappings. I think that's where a lot of the stuff comes on the wall here. An estimated 58,200 children were victims of a non-family abduction in 1999. And I'm sorry, I know 1999 seems so far back, and I'm sure our numbers have grown.
Mm.
But this definitely points out the reasonings, yeah, and it gives you an idea of what you're looking for. So, bear with me on these dates here. All right, so non-family abductions occur when someone who is not a relative abducts and detains the child without lawful authority or parental permission with the intention to keep the child permanently. In 1999, there were also 115 stereotypical kidnappings. A stereotypical kidnapping occurs when a stranger or a slight acquaintance transports a child 50 miles or more from home and either kills the child, holds the child for ransom, or intends to keep the child permanently. And so in these cases, 81% were 12 years old or older in non-family cases. 58% were 12 years old or older in stereotypical kidnappings. 40% of stereo kidnappings, the child was killed. And another 4%, the child was not recovered. 86%, the predators are male. The abducted children are predominantly female, and nearly half all victims were sexually assaulted. So, I mean, there's just so much to think about in these situations.
Right.
When your kid goes outside, I don't care how old they are. Watch out there, see where they're at.
Right.
If they're not home, I mean, all kids are going to stay gone longer than what they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
But after 15, 20 minutes, you tell me somebody doesn't have a cell phone, give them a call. Hey, where are you? Make sure you leave that communication open. And that way, when it does come down, I believe the police have so long before they can actually file a missing persons report.
And I think that's heavily dependent on jurisdiction as well. Some jurisdictions have different policies, but I want to say the most common one is 24 or 48 hours after they've gone missing.
I think it's 24 for a child and 48 for an adult.
Which is such a shame that you have to wait so long in most jurisdictions to file a missing persons report, because I mean there's a really it was really common. I think you used to watch it every once in a while. It was called the first 48. And the first 48 hours after a person goes missing is the most, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's the most critical time to get out there.
Right.
Yeah. They say if you cannot solve a case in 48 hours, chances are good it's going to become a cold case.
Right.
Or it's going to be a case that doesn't end well.
As far as the missing persons cases,
Yes.
yeah.
And then, of course, our elderly come up missing. A lot of that happens because they go out and they start wandering.
Right.
And it could be somebody that really still has their wits about them and everything, but all it takes is one little mishap and they become disoriented. It's
Right.
like, they can't recall which way back they're going. We have people out here that prey on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not very hard to tell a person that seems to be a bit confused. So come on, I'm gonna help you go home.
Right.
And in the interim, this person's never seen again. So you need to watch for your elderly as well.
And even then, same sort of principle. I was in Scouts growing up, so we went camping quite often, and there were a handful of times I went hiking through the woods and I got a little turned around. And I've always found my way back, because Scouts kind of taught me how to track my footsteps back to where I needed to go. but you've got so many kids and so many families that love to go camping, and they're going camping in a wilderness area, a national park or what have you, that's got quite a large area to be able to cover, and the kids wander off because they're going to help you look for firewood or what have you, and they get turned around and don't know how to get back home, or
Right.
get back to the campsite.
Right.
So it's the same principle, and from what I've understood, I've not really looked at any statistics, but from what I've understood, most of those cases are just a case of people being lost in the woods rather than being abducted.
Yes.
But it's still a missing person.
Well, yeah, and now they also have things going on like in your store parking lots.
Right.
There's something that they'll stick it in the door handle, and they're telling you, do not even touch the door handle. Go back inside. Get the police there. They'll bring the right people in, because what it is there's something on that that lets off a chemical that makes you disoriented or even pass out. And there's generally somebody nearby watching that car.
Right.
So, yes, you got to pay attention now. There's putting things on your windshield. If you find $1 or $20 bill, don't pick it up.
Right.
You never know anymore. And some of the stuff that they're putting on this thing has fentanyl in it.
Which is quite deadly. Yeah.
Yes. So you may not even make it to that vehicle, to find out what the outcome's going to be.
Right.
So there's just so many things that you have to make yourself aware of. There is a rumor going around, and I've noticed it's hit almost every Walmart about people following them out to the car, things like that. Always, if you notice somebody's kind of lingering around you too much, don't be afraid to tell them you need to walk to your car.
Right.
That's what they're there for.
Exactly.
Most places have security. I'm kind of hoping that they do, make it so security takes you out, because they are trained for that. Just because you work in a store does not mean you're trained to know how to handle that situation.
Well, and on that note, something that both scouts and the military's taught me is the buddy system. And for very different reasons than what I'm about to say. But if you're at least in pairs, chances are really good that if you do wind up being a target for a predator in that sense, chances are really good that if you're in pairs, even with someone, an employee from the store that's walking you to your vehicle, that that predator will not wind up attacking you. So,
and if you're leaving a store parking lot, it's the same car is following you. When you start getting closer to like your neighborhood, and you notice that car is still there, don't go home.
No, definitely
go to the
do
nearest
not go
police
home.
station, because I guarantee you, once you pull in, they're going to pull off. But please, still go and get those cops and officers.
And
let them follow you home. Let them
right,
make sure you're safe.
Right, and even if you want to be like fairly positive that somebody is following you, one trick that I've learned through social media as well as other sites is, if you make 4 left turns, if that person's still behind you, chances are really good that they're following you.
That's interesting. I've never heard that.
Most everyone wants to turn right because it's at least here in the States, it's the easiest way to turn because you're going with the flow of traffic.
Okay, I guess
So
that makes sense.
If you turn left, you're essentially throwing a curveball. And of course, another indicator is if they don't use their turn signals as well, because of course you think somebody's following you, so you make that first left-hand turn, and they don't think anything of it. They're not paying attention to your turn signals. They're just paying attention to your vehicle in general because they want you. You make that first left turn, they're going to be caught off guard, and because they want to go after you for whatever reason it is, chances are they won't use their turn signal because they're going to be too preoccupied with catching up to you.
And it's going to be a last minute turn for them.
Right.
I got you. That makes perfectly sense. Perfect sense. See, on his show this morning, he couldn't speak. Today, it's, on my show, it's my turn, so. So we have like 800,000 people that are reported missing every year in the United States. Matter of fact, May 25th is National Missing Children's Day. If you look on the screen behind us, you'll see it's flowing. I don't know how many of those pictures you can actually see or read, but these are people that have come up missing throughout the years. Here we have like 2001, another 2001, and it's kind of looking like there's two at a time on these. Is that what that is, or is that the growing? I'm sorry, growing aspect of them. 2016, 2022. This has been going on for years, many, many years. In 1983, National Missing Children's Day was proclaimed by President Ronald Reagan and commemorates the disappearance of Ethan Patz, who vanished in 1979. In 79, I was still a child myself. After the abduction and the murder of their son Adam, John and Reeve Walsh helped create the show, or helped create the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and he also did his own show.
What was that show? The FBI's Most Wanted?
No,
Was it not?
America's Most Wanted.
Oh, America's Most
Yes.
Wanted. Yeah.
Yes, and of course, it started out because of his son. However, he grew it to cover all missing persons. I do believe some people were found as a result of this. Whether they were found dead or alive, I can't speculate. It's been a while since I've watched the show, but that used to be one that we watched every week. You even watched it growing up. We have a tip line that was receiving reports in 1998. The NEMIC Cyber Tip Line has received 41 million reports since its inception. Unfortunately, many children and adults are never reported missing, making no reliable way to determine the true number of missing persons in this country. Could you imagine that, you're gone and nobody's even reporting you gone?
Right.
I mean, that's just, you have to start wondering there too. So if you find out a child's missing and the parent never reported them missing, that parent needs to be facing some jail time because there's a reason that they just didn't care enough to say, hey.
Very much so.
There is no federal mandate that requires law enforcement to wait 24 hours before accepting a report of a missing person. So that goes back to what you were saying, county to county. The Missing Children Act of 1982 authorized the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, to enter and maintain relevant information about missing children in the National Crime Information Center. So that, I believe that's where the database came in.
Right.
And they were able to just click on a few buttons and get a general idea. Is this a missing child? Or you see videos now. And I know some people don't really watch some of these videos because I know some of them are far-fetched, but they have some out where it shows a child or an adult. There are specific signs that should make somebody aware that something's going on.
Oh, the different hand signals.
Yeah,
I
the little
think
girl's really rude and she knocks. And so the lady originally is wow, and then she realizes
to get their attention,
Yeah.
and then she the little girl crossed her fingers behind her back or something
Right.
like that, and that was supposed to be an indicator that something was wrong. So, again, I think most of those videos are staged, but I think they're staged for very good reason. I
Right.
think they're trying to get a big thing going across the entire
I agree.
world so that people understand
Yes,
things
it just becomes a
happen.
natural thing, and when you see these signs,
Right.
but please, I mean, like in the video, it shows them running up to you with the phone. I've just called 911. Don't do that.
No.
Not only are you putting that child in more danger, you're putting
You're-
yourself in danger as
Right,
well.
Right.
So, get on the phone, stay a reasonable distance behind them so you could inform the law enforcement officers where you're at, what's going on.
Right. Just don't make yourself conspicuous.
Right. That's definitely, on Christmas Eve, 1945, Sauter family home was engulfed in flames. George Sauter, his wife, Jeannie, and 4 of the 9 Sauter children escaped. The bodies of the other 4 children had never been found.
Oh, wow.
So again, that brings into question, where are these children? Were they removed from the parents? Were they gone and not reported?
Right.
How was this played out? In 1984, the NCMEC's national hotline has received more than 4.8 million calls. According to the FBI in 2017, there were 464,324 NCIC entries for missing children. That's too many. One's too many, but that is definitely too many.
Right.
This is just. NCMEC has facilitated the training more than 356,000 law enforcement, criminal justice, juvenile justice, and healthcare professionals. That's just trying to keep our children safe and the people around us. In 2000, President Clinton signed Kristen's Law, creating the first national clearinghouse for missing adults. The National Center for Missing Adults was founded by Kim L. Pasqualini, which is a good thing. 'Cause like I said, for the longest, people just focused on children.
Right.
You know, they thought only children
Right.
came up missing. Nobody understood that the mom that didn't come home didn't necessarily just take off.
Right.
Again, we're discussing the Alzheimer's, dementia, or other mental disabilities. I think for any given person, I know when I'm driving and I feel like I've lost my bearings, I panic.
Right.
I remember one time I was coming up here in Jefferson. I didn't come to Jefferson very often. And I called your brother and I was freaking out. I need you to come get me because I don't know where I'm at.
All right.
And I mean, it was just that quick. I was turned around. But thankfully, I saw something that finally clicked and I was able to take that breath and move forward.
Right.
But had I not known, I had somebody on their way to help me. Had I not figured that out, where would that have put me? I would have panicked. Anybody could have came up and said, "Hey, let me help you."
Right.
And it could have been sincere, but it could have been last time I saw my family. So it just depends on how you handle things and where your mind frame is. So even though the Alzheimer's and dementia and stuff definitely play a big part, even those that just are directionally challenged, such as I, just it creates a problem for them. If you are dealing with a family member with dementia, or Alzheimer's, or whatever, please make sure they have a caregiver 24/7.
Right.
Because they might have these things, but that doesn't mean that their minds are gone. They still want to go outside. They want to be able to walk.
Right.
They want.
Exactly.
They just can't be doing this stuff by themselves because you never know.
Right.
And unfortunately, we never know who our neighbors are anymore either. So you have the right neighbor who all this time you thought was the most wonderful person in the world.
Yeah.
It turns out they're not. So always be on the lookout and watching your back. And I'm going to let DJ Menace tell a little bit of our statistics here. You can start with the Amber Alert.
Okay, so the Amber Alert was created in 1996 after the disappearance and murder of a 9-year-old Amber Hagerman from Arlington, Texas. The Silver Alert is a public notification system to broadcast information about individuals with Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and other mental disabilities. There are 17,985 police agencies in the United States. A lot more than I thought. So on average, over 83,000 people are missing at any given moment, to include approximately 50,000 missing adults and 30,000 missing children. That is far too many to have at any given moment. The first 12 to 24 hours are the most critical in a missing person's investigation. For children, the first 3 hours are especially critical, as 76% of children are abducted by strangers, are killed within that time frame. Most missing children are abducted by family members, which I think we covered a lot of that
Right, in the beginning.
You know, for a long time, the the common viewing was that, um, you know, well, I know this person, that they definitely could not be the one that abducted my kid,
Right.
when they might be or seem really sincere and, you know, want to help, um, you and your family, and you know them really well, but they're being sincere for very ugly reasons.
Right. And always, don't always say never. Don't ever say never,
Right.
because you never know. I mean, like I said, you don't know who you're sitting next to. You don't know their
Right.
deep seated thoughts and where their mind frames are.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And, you know, unless you've got, um, even a really good relationship with, say, an ex-spouse, uh, I would even be hesitant on allowing my child to spend time with my ex-spouse
Because you never know.
alone, because you never know what they're going to try to do. And a lot of that will be dependent on the reasons that you guys, split up in the first place. But, um, you know, it's one of those things. A lot of times, a very good portion of the missing, children's cases, the children were abducted by family members and close friends, and it's
You've
just
even
sickening.
had a parent sell a child to support a drug habit or
Right.
gambling. What people do just really, really makes me stop to think about how blessed I am that my children never even had to experience anything like this. Neither of my grandchildren, knock on wood, they're still young. So.
Right. So what do we have here? As of May 31st, 2018, there were 8,709 unidentified persons in the NCIC system. The Amber Alert is credited with safely recovering 868, that's 868, missing children between 1997 and 2017. So, in all honesty, if most everyone has cell phones nowadays, and Amber Alerts come to your cell phones because you're within a specified region, and you know the police and law enforcement in general feel that, um, being early in the case, your chances are within a 50-mile range, or whatever that range is that they specify. You'll get that Amber Alert, and if you know anything about that case or about those people that are missing, um, please do
And
reach
another way
out.
cell phones are good, for instance, the boys were told when you're 16, you can have a cell phone. With the world we're
Right.
living in today, those rules got bent
Right.
because, she wants to know that they can call home or they can call for help. But here's something else everybody needs to know. Even if you give your child a cell phone that does not work, doesn't have to have time or anything, just needs to
As
be charged,
as long as it's
they
got
can call
battery.
911. So that's important. If you don't want them to have the phone for texting and all that, and I totally get that,
Mhm.
just make sure that they have a charged phone, because
Right.
911 is available no matter
Exactly.
what.
Exactly. Even if you get one of those old brick Nokias from the 90s,
Well, I don't know. They might be
as
spotted with, with that, but yeah, I understand.
as long as it's got battery, and it can keep battery for a day or so, it will dial 911.
Absolutely.
I do believe any landline phone, that is, connected to, of course, um, the landline, even if it doesn't have service, I do want to say those will dial 911 as well, but I might be incorrect with that.
Well, we're going to find out because that is something definitely to know.
So while she is checking on that, let's see. The most famous missing child case is the 1932 kidnapping of 20-month-old Charles Lindbergh Jr., abducted from his second-story nursery in Hopewell, New Jersey. And that's one other thing to remember is security of your home is paramount. Whether you have whether you live alone and you don't have any children or any partner, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, what have you, security of your home is paramount. Um, you know, I laughed at people for a long time for as soon as they walk in the door, they shut and lock their door. And as I've gotten older, I've learned that really security of your home is paramount. Most of your abductions that happen are going to happen between in a store's parking lot or at home. You've got something?
Says yes, 911 emergency services should still be able to be reached on a landline, even if the landline does not have service.
Right.
The only thing is you have to make sure you're staying on the line, because if they're disconnected, they have no way of getting back to you
Right.
if you decide to hang up and they're trying to decide, is this legit? Is this a prank call? Because unfortunately people do
right,
that.
Right. Yeah, and that really is something that I think needs to be raised to everyone's attention is to be aware, 100% aware of your surroundings, even in your own home. If you don't know where things are situated, that can prove to be an issue for you if something were to happen.
Right.
And then of course you're out in public. You went to a shopping center. Granted, at least in our area, most stores that were 24 hours before COVID did not go back to 24 hours.
No, they did not.
So because of the commotion that's created, because now instead of being able to go to Walmart at midnight because you're a third shifter, or you have anxiety, and that's when they've got a low count of people.
Well, one would think. I've tried going at 1 o'clock in the morning, and there's more people in there than what you think.
That is true. That is true, but it is tremendously less, or at
Yeah.
least it was tremendously less than what you had during the day. But what that time change has created is more hustle and bustle during the day.
And therefore, you're not as aware of your surroundings as you normally would be.
Right.
Yes.
Most people want to get in and get out of the store, which is understandable.
That's me.
But if you're not staying aware of your surroundings, you're not paying attention to who's around you. You're not paying attention. You're not always going to be able to see it ahead of time, but in many cases, there are warning signs to look out for. Again, you feel like somebody's following you. Chances are, even if you don't notice that they are, if you feel like somebody's watching you, they definitely are.
Yeah, just always take extra precautions,
Right.
And see where you're at and how things are going.
Right. And of course, if at least here in the States, a lot of people now are going to extremes and going out to get firearms and knives and stuff to defend themselves. But the issue with that is that they're not taking the necessary training for themselves to know how to properly use them.
You have to know how to aim, how to make that successful. And I've always been told, if you point a gun at somebody, you better be ready to pull that trigger.
Exactly.
Because chances are good, if you point a gun at somebody, they're probably going to come out of their pocket with something else, or even a bigger gun. So
well, and not only that, but one thing that I've learned from the military is that whatever the muzzle of that weapon is pointing at, you need to be prepared and ready and willing to destroy whatever it is.
yes.
Because you might be showing off or something because I've got a new toy to play
Right.
with because you're an avid shooter, and so you pull it out and you forget that you keep it in your safe loaded, which you shouldn't do. But if you keep it in your safe loaded and you pull it out and you're playing and you accidentally pull that trigger, then whatever's in that path is getting destroyed.
And I might be explaining this wrong because I'm not one that shoots a gun often, but I've shot a few different ones now. And I think all guns have some kind of a what I call kickback. So
Right.
even though I'm aiming at you, if I don't have the proper teaching, I'm not holding that gun right, it's gonna move, it's gonna kick.
Right. Yeah. No.
And
And
it could be somebody that's not your target that gets shot.
right.
That's where the accidental shootings come in.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And accidental shootings or accidental discharges in general are not something to be taken lightly. You know, you're at a shooting range because you're trying to be prepared. If you have an accidental shooting or a misfire, you know, in any type of way, your range officers are going to see that because they are very strict because they want everyone to be safe. They want everyone to go out with everything that they came in with,
Yes.
less a handful of ammunition, of course.
And I mean, the topic today definitely was not to get on guns, but it is to point out if that's the option you take
Right.
to get properly educated so that you don't take a life that's not intended to be taken.
Right. I think the whole purpose of the topic for today is to
All these
raise
missing people.
to raise awareness and you know to maybe even give some tips as to how to avoid getting onto a poster like this.
And keep in mind, you know, these are only a few posters. There's thousands upon thousands more out here. My heart goes out to the family members of a child or a person that have gone missing, especially when you're not hearing any updates, things aren't going good. There's actually, and it's been on, I think, Forensic Files and The Missing, a young man, Mason Smith. I think that was his name. They're still looking for this young man. They have a website basically for him. However, a lot of people go on there and post. So, I mean, if you get a chance to look at it, you know, watch the show. It's a good segment. It shows how, you know, how somebody's there 1 minute and gone the next. No reasons, no rhymes, you know, however that saying goes. So be vigilant. Pay attention to your kids' Facebooks, anything, because people can be anybody they want to be online. And I think that's been proven time and time again. I think that's where a lot of that, you got to validate, you know, this page or that page, you know, to show that it's
Right.
authentic. But there's still ways around that. Facebook did a thing for a minute there where you couldn't use a nickname. I think it had to be your name.
Right.
It's not funny.
We definitely need to figure something else out because I don't think your cough drops are working.
They were. I had juice on what to swallow and it went down wrong.
Oh goodness. I hate when that happens.
I'm sorry. Yes, it was suggested I get some honey cough drops. The last 2 weeks they've worked up until now. Ooh, okay, I'm all right now. So we're getting close to running out of time today. You know, take a moment, look at some of these missing posters. See if, you know, if anybody looks familiar. Sometimes that's all it takes for these people to be found.
Right.
Some are gone because they want to be gone. So, I mean, it's hard telling, but still make those calls because by this time they can say, "Hey, I don't want to be found," and then they can be left alone.
Right. Right.
At least the family knows that they're alive and they're well. So don't hesitate. If you think somebody even comes close to resembling somebody, make that call.
Right.
You could be the very person that makes a change in that person's life.
Exactly. If you want to keep going for a few more minutes, I'll bring a page up that you know we'll sit behind the page and we can speak a little more on this and maybe touch on a couple of other things.
Okay.
So let's see. So this here is right from the FBI's website. It's a list. It's filtered now by year. So I do believe it's the oldest. Let's see. Oh, well, this is from 2016, Liliana and Daniela Moreno. There's, I mean, as you see, it's clearly not just children that are missing.
Absolutely.
You know, all these people.
And this link will also be on my website.
Yes.
So then we have remember Lacey Peterson. Remember when she came up missing? She was 8 months pregnant with her first child when she was reported missing by her husband, Scott Peterson. That was a really, really big case that was nationwide. Unfortunately, she came up missing on Christmas Eve of 2002 in a highly publicized case. Scott Peterson was convicted of first-degree murder of Lacey and their unborn child.
Wow.
Yeah, and it took them a while to get him. It took a lot of hard work and dedication because they
Right.
knew where they wanted to be. They just had to get the right stuff to make it happen. Let's see, the FBI Combined DNA Index System, CODIS, was authorized in 1994 and cross-references missing persons, DNA family missing persons DNA, and the DNA of unidentified persons. NCMEC forensic artists have age progressed more than 6,000 images of long-term missing children. And that's another reason, even if you think it's possible this isn't, it is, but it's not type deal,
Right.
please make that call because technology is not perfect. So these pictures get you close. They don't necessarily get you there, but they get you very, very close.
Right. For instance, see it because I was looking at the pictures the other day. Here we go. So this particular boy went missing in 2007, and of course, if you know, very handsome boy, and you know, my heart goes out to his family that's looking for him. But you can see that the photograph that's on the far right is age progressed to 14. So that's
And how old was he when he came up missing?
Let's see, it doesn't say. He was born in 95 and went missing in 2007, and I can't do the math in my head. So maybe 12.
Exactly. He was
Good
12
guess.
years old. So,
You know, so I mean, of course, that's only a 2-year age progression, and it looks like that software actually got it fairly accurate because, of course, it's only 2 years. You know, but if we go back, and Natasha went missing, where is it? Back in 2000. And let's see, she was born in 89. So on the left
it was
is
then about 12.
yeah, so on the left is you know, photograph of approximately when she went missing. You know, but of course on the right there's been so many years that we don't know 100% that age progression is accurate.
Right.
So
Especially, like, you never know how they chose to wear their hair or
right.
anything like that. So that definitely makes some changes there. Let's see. Those who suffer from mental disorders, minorities, and those who live high-risk lifestyles engaging in substance abuse and or prostitution are less likely to receive media attention than other cases of missing persons. And that is so true.
Right.
A lot of people will say, well, they chose to be on the streets, they chose to do drugs. That doesn't help a parent
Right.
or a
Well,
child.
and if you've ever seen Criminal Minds, um, that's I think one thing that as a show about police work and detective work in general, I think that's something that they got quite accurate was that you know, anyone who's homeless or feels that prostitution is the only way for them to be able to make ends meet,
Right.
they're considered low risk targets for the predators that are out there. So it is quite disheartening that our society today looks down on someone
And look,
for
you
whatever
don't
reason.
have to invite him to your house for dinner if you don't want to. I mean, at least be nice to take a hamburger or something. But make sure you know their whereabouts. That way,
Right.
when all of a sudden they're not around, you know something is wrong. Because I
Right.
don't care what they're doing, they don't deserve to be taken and killed or taken and tormented.
No.
Uh, we are actually on the 10th anniversary of the girls out of Cleveland being found.
Oh.
They are, from what I can see, they're doing very well. I think it's Amber does a missing person segment on Fox 8. I think that's who that is. Michelle, she's beautiful, and I believe she has a child. And there's Amber, Michelle, and Gina.
Mm.
And all because one day one of them had enough.
Mm.
And when they thought they had that opportunity, they took it.
Right.
Talk about being brave.
Right. And it if you're in a situation like that ever, it does take a lot of courage and bravery
does.
to be able to overcome something like that.
It does.
You know, let alone you let the course play out, and you know they were kept captive for how
I
long?
think 10 years.
You know, so I mean that's 10 years.
Yeah, and all they
That
had was each other. I mean, other
right.
than, well, one of them he finally did allow to live upstairs.
You
I
know,
guess
but
because she had his child. I don't know,
right.
but these are just things that these girls should have never ever had to go
No.
through, and they were all within a couple blocks of their home. One mother was gone, never got to see the child come home.
Oh, that's always sad.
Yeah, I believe one has since passed. Not one of the young girls that they
Mm.
found, but the parent. So these families were robbed of 10 years of their lives. You had the girls who were locked up and miserable and being tormented and
Right.
everything else. Then you had the parents and the family members being tormented, not knowing where they're at, what was going on with them. So there was a big devastation to everybody that knew the girls, you know, or even those that got involved. I
Right.
mean, you can't tell me, you know, people may not have gotten involved in trying to find them and everything, and then they just shut off their feelings.
Exactly.
So everybody went through torment trying to figure out how to find these girls and how to save them. And the sad part is this man's child, he had a child who actually went to school with these girls. That's how he
Mm.
found them. So, I mean,
Wow.
it's just people are sick. And of course, he didn't get his justice. Not, as I said that wrong. They didn't get their justice because he took his life
Right.
before he could serve out his time and maybe get a smidge of what they were experiencing. Because I don't care who you are in prison or why you're in prison, but you mess with little girls. Mm. So, what do we have here? If a person has gone missing for 7 years, they can legally be declared deceased, which is where a lot of your marital things come in at. Because 9 out of 10 times, if you're married, your spouse is your life insurance beneficiary.
Right.
So their goal is just make them disappear for 7 years. Then I could claim him deceased, have the proper funeral, whatever, and
Right.
receive this money. Well, little do they know, 9 out of 10 times that comes back to bite you. Let's see. We have J.C. Duggar. She was 11 years old when she was abducted by a stranger on June 10th, 1991. She was located 18 years later in 2009, kept concealed in tents behind Philip Gordio's residence. Gardio fathered two of Duggar's children and was sentenced to 431 years to life for the kidnapping and the rape of Duggard. I'm glad he was caught. I'm so sorry this baby had to endure all that.
Right.
Uh, all 50 states including the District of Columbia, U.S., Virginia Islands, and Puerto Rico have AMBER plans in place to help find missing children. So now we all know there is no federal law stating that these places have to wait 24, 48 hours. So if a loved one comes up missing, throw a fit.
Exactly.
Make yourself heard until they get this out there.
Exactly. And even if your jurisdiction tells you that you cannot file a missing persons report for 24 to 48 hours, that does not mean that the police will not help you. They may not be able to file, you might not be able to file a missing persons report right then and there. However, the police will, in very many cases, put out a BOLO, which stands for be on the lookout, so that if an officer that's on his rounds sees that, you know, the person with the description that you gave the police, they can do something about it then.
Right.
You know, and that's another thing too with your children. Always, I know school pictures are a pain, but you get a picture every year for,
Yes.
you know, kids that are in public. I think most private schools do
Yeah,
school
they do the
pictures
same
as
thing.
well.
Yes.
You know, but at least get a wallet portrait, at least. So that way you constantly have an annually updated
Yes.
photograph of your children. And even if you don't do it that way, everyone has cell phones now. So take a picture on your cell phone. Most people carry their cell phones with them everywhere.
Right.
So if something were to happen with one of your kids, you have a very recent picture, as well as knowing what they were wearing that day. You know, a red T-shirt with really dark blue jeans.
And that's actually another thing going around on Facebook. That's a scam right now. They're getting pictures of kids and they're posting them, and you'll know it's a scam because it states the exact same thing, other than they changed the city or the state.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always, you know, he left for school today wearing so da da da. So, you know, this picture was taken whenever, and then the pictures always were taken at the same time.
Right.
So that's definitely something that everybody wants to be aware of. People are posting them. A lot of that is to lure people as well.
Right.
So.
Right. And of course, if it's not coming from a source such as the FBI,
The police,
or you know, and anything like that, or even directly from the family that those people are missing from, take it with a very large grain of salt.
And you can also call your local police department.
Yes,
I would say call probably the non-emergency number, and let them know, you know, hey, I'm looking at this thing on Facebook. I need to know if it's legit before I share it or not, because, you know, I'm not going to put somebody else's life in danger.
Right. Right.
So,
you know, and should you see something that looks suspicious, should you see you know, something on Facebook about a missing child, and you're going down the road and you see that missing child, 100% call 911.
yes.
That is, at least if you're in the States, that is the fastest way to get that child help.
Yes. And he keeps stressing if you're in the States, and it's because he has become acquainted with quite a few people
Yes.
outside of the United States. And we're learning everything that we do here is different
Right.
for them over there. So anybody that he knows that would be out of the States not listening, they would know what their protocol is.
Right.
So he's just letting you know that, you know, if you're not in the state, or if there's any chance of what you're doing, you know, could be different, follow up on it. Find out what protocol is for you, so that if you ever do find yourself in these situations, you know who to contact.
Right. I do believe, but I'm not 100% accurate or, you know, positive that that this is the case. But I do believe that Canada has the same emergency number that we do down here in the States. I do believe theirs is 911 as well.
It'd be nice if that was implemented, the
So-
same everywhere.
Well, it is.
I know, just different numbers.
not
I'm
the
just
same
saying,
number. And
That way, if you are traveling, because we do get a lot of travelers, so if
Well-
you're traveling and you're in the situation, it's just automatic.
right, and from what I understand, even though they may have different emergency numbers, like I think one was 999. And I want to say that's the UK, but again, I'm not 100% positive.
Okay.
But if you were traveling and you traveled with your cell phone, but of course you got your roaming plan opened up so that you could use your cell phone while overseas.
Right.
Even I do want to say, and again, I'm not 100% positive, that if you do dial 911, it does automatically route to their emergency number.
That's definitely something worth looking at.
So,
And on that note, we are definitely out of time today. For our local businesses, we have, how do you say his name? Hofstetter's?
Hofstettlers.
Hofstettlers, a little jewelry store here in Jefferson, Ohio. Wonderful people, sweet as could be. Very personable. Oh, look, he's all ready for us here. And then Lakeway Restaurant in Ashtabula, Ohio. I can't tell you how many years they've been around. I know they're around before my time even, and they've always been family owned. They are looking to sell right now. They are ready to retire, which I know one lady, she's almost 80 years old. She still goes into work 4 o'clock every morning to make the homemade breads and everything. So if you get a chance to stop in there and have a bite to eat and say hi before they sell their business, that would be great.
And it is very good food. I've
Yes.
been there once or twice. It is very good food. They've always kept very good service.
And the place
So,
is clean. That's important to me.
Very much so.
So, is there anybody local you want to speak of, or?
I think Hofstettlers is the one that I would have touched on.
Okay.
You kind of touched on it during my show this morning, how they took care of your mother's ring right then and there.
It was, and it, many reasons that's so special to me. And I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to wear it anymore. I will have it back probably within the next week, and it will be fixed. Reasonable price.
Yes, and
So-
and they are very good. I went in there one day because, well, I was working in a nursing home down here in Jefferson, and my glasses had broken. I think right at the bridge of the nose or something, if I remember right. And knowing that they were a jewelry store, I thought, well, maybe they could solder my glasses together, at least to get me by until I can go to the eye doctor and get a refreshed set. So I went in there with my glasses, and I asked them, and they were open and honest with me, and not in a rude manner whatsoever. That they were very polite and said, chances are, with the way the glasses are made today, we won't be able to do anything for you. So
And then they
There-
could have taken the money and pretended to try. So,
right,
yes.
exactly. So, it's one of the few family owned and operated stores that we have in our area. So
We don't have a whole lot. So, I mean, we got to put plugs in there for what we
Right.
do have. There's, what's it called? Fat Sally's down there. I think it's Lake and 8th. It's a nice big, it looks like a big barn type thing sitting there. She's got a lot of antique stuff in there, different things. Check her out too.
speaking of antiques as well, because we have antique hunters all over the place, and I'm sure there's a few antiquers that are paying attention to us. Right here in Jefferson is the Refinery. Don't get that confused with refinery. You'll get lost. But at any rate, they're right on the main strip through town, and they've got a lot of antiques and a lot of vintage products. We went in there the other day, and they had a couple of old typewriters, a couple of old microphones.
Is that where that picture of Minnie came through and all I could do was look at a picture?
Yeah,
So rude.
yeah. I think we were trying to wait for a response from you, but we were already out of the store before we got a response.
Oh, I see how this works. I'm at work. I can't always respond, folks.
So, but
So, just if you have something that you're doing, it's small business wise, personally owned or whatever, shoot me a message. We'll get you on the air one way or the other.
right.
And hopefully I think we're at 258 followers right now. Hopefully you guys help me get up there and we get some more.
Right.
I'm still plugging to do a segment from home. We'll see how that goes. Somebody over here is spoiled brat. So step by step.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm kind of thinking at some point, because we know that it's going to happen at some point, but we need to kind of fine tune our remote skills. So either as a test run on an off day or something like that, we do
Yes.
need to try to do something remote.
Yes.
You from your house and me from mine.
That's his
so.
way of telling me not to come back. He's tired of feeding me.
Well, no. I love cooking, especially with the griddle.
He cooked me a really nice
if-
breakfast this morning.
If you guys don't know anything about them, it doesn't matter what brand you get. Blackstone, the Sam's Club brand, I think it's Members Mark, what have you. Gas flat top griddle. That's the way to go over a grill. You it's not the same as a grill, so of course you want to at least keep a small grill just in case you want to do your steaks like legitimately on the grill, but it'll do everything that a grill can and more. So it pretty much, if you can cook on a stovetop, you can cook it on the griddle, and it's
Oh, you know
really
what?
good.
Speaking of cooking and stuff, don't forget, next week is Mother's Day. Don't forget your mothers.
No,
I don't care if you just pick the phone and say, I'm thinking about you. Don't forget them.
exactly.
We're taking grandma out to breakfast and we're hoping you'll be a part of it.
It's a
So-
plan.
Okay. So on that note, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. From my house to yours, or from DJ Menace's house to yours, whichever the case may be. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you.
Enjoy.